I'm joined by Harry Litman of the Talking Feds YouTube channel and the Talking Feds podcast. Subscribe to both. Harry, MAGA stands for Make Attorneys Get Attorneys. And we've
Right.
been seeing it that week, coast to coast, big news out of various ethics committees and the State Bar of California in their case against Trump's lawyer, John Eastman, ultimately the judge who oversees the state bar disciplinary proceedings, recommended that Eastman be disbarred. Eastman was once a professor at Chapman University and was somewhat of a distinguished lawyer out here in California, although I remember seeing some of his lectures decades ago and they were very questionable, but I certainly couldn't have predicted it would go in this direction. But the recommendation is that Eastman be disbarred for his effort in trying to overthrow the 2020 election and engaging in moral turpitude there too. Then you go to the District of Columbia. We head east with Jeffrey Clark, who was the individual Donald Trump wanted to make attorney general. He was in the Department of Justice, very sympathetic to MAGA. We learned through testimony from some of the more serious Team Normal people who were in the Department of Justice and Donald Trump's lawyers that Trump had, in fact, even officially made Jeff Clark attorney general for a few hours before members at the Department of Justice, who were actually the serious lawyers, said there would be a mass resignation and they would humiliate Donald Trump in public. So Trump removed that attorney general designation for Jeff Clark. Also, you had Jeff Clark seemingly asserting attorney-client privilege at certain points, in addition to invoking the Fifth Amendment, either not understanding that the Department of Justice is not Donald Trump's lawyer, or implicating Donald Trump in another crime, fraud, directly by claiming he was serving both in the DOJ and as Donald Trump's personal lawyer. Well, Harry Litman, you served at a top-level position in the Department of Justice, so all of this to you is something that you know intimately well, or all of the outcome here is something that's probably shocks you from someone who was inside, but I guess nothing shocks us anymore when it comes to Trump. So break this all down from us. Pick which coast you want to start with.
I want to do, I'll start west, but just quite a brew. First of all, just thinking about Eastman and Clark, they both take it on the chin big time. Chapman, as you say, was a professor. He was let go there, and Clark, had some time as a lawyer, but they're both going to be losing their livelihoods. I mean, this is a serious professional blow, and of course there are more serious potential damage to come for both of them in Fulton County. And January 6th, by the way, Ben, is gonna it's gonna feature them. Clark is co-conspirator number 5 or whatever, and Eastman plays a very interesting role. Trump has been trying to tiptoe around and get a advice of counsel defense that he really doesn't have the right to get for a number of reasons. But guess who's his counsel that he supposedly relied on in good faith and really believed? You got it, John Eastman. That's who it's gonna be from out there. So it's gonna be a bit of an inconvenient fact that he's getting disbarred, and he basically is. His license is already inactive. It goes up to the California Supreme Court, but I don't see them reversing a 94-page opinion that just absolutely clobbers him at every turn. Basically says everything you're saying is A, false, and B, without any legal basis at all. So, I think his days as a lawyer are done, and that has some resonance for what happens to Trump should he try. We know, for instance, that he's tried in the past to at least suggest advice of counsel. I can't see that being a starter for him, but this is the guy who's the advice. And now back to Clark in D.C. What was really interesting to me about that, everything we've learned so far, including even in the January 6th committee, has been really sort of mediated, partial. For example, the Team Normal in the January 6th committee invoked kind of just in case executive privilege. But here we have grown-ups, serious grown-ups. And I'll start with Pat Philbin, who was the deputy to Pat Cipollone in the White House counsel, but everyone understands him to be a serious guy. He's actually, interestingly, the guy who way back when with Ashcroft and Comey takes a stand for the rule of law and saying that torture memos don't wash. But we have his testimony then, and he's somebody who it's brutal for Trump because he's not a guy looking to bury him. It's clear, but he's a dutiful guy who knows the law. And he actually gets tabbed by Donahue and Rosen, who are the top two acting people in the department. Can you please try to talk some sense into Jeff Clark, who he's known forever? And he goes to Clark and he tells him, A, there's nothing here. B, it would be a disaster. C, in the unlikely event you could make this happen, there'd be riots all across America, to which Jeff Clark says, that's what the Insurrection Act is for, Pat. So, I mean, just the very vision of a coup, right? They do this, riots break out, Trump brings in the army. You know, we're talking about revolution at the ramparts. That's what Clark thinks seems to happen. Now, Philbin does say, and Philbin tries to talk him out of it, but he can't. And that's when they proceed to the White House for the pivotal meeting on the 2nd of January, where the three of them, Philbin, Donahue, Rosen, say, Mr. President, you try this, the entire leadership of the DOJ is going to resign en masse, and not just the leadership. You can't do it. And that made everyone back down. And now Clark, who was in heady times as the acting attorney general, as you say, for 90 minutes, and just in general consorting improperly, directly with Donald Trump. Now he's in the position of taking the fifth and having tail between his legs because, you know, the facts here absolutely inculpate him in a unlawful, unconstitutional plot to overthrow the safe effect transfer of power, the hallmark of democracy. So bad week for the two of them, but it has implications for what we're going to be seeing in the Trump trials, of course, if they ever happen.
Harry, but I thought only the mob takes the fifth. Didn't Donald Trump once say that? I mean, you had John Eastman tried to invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination in the California State Bar proceeding. The California State Bar judge said, wait a minute, you testified to some of this stuff already, and you've been going on TV talking about all of this, so you can't now selectively invoke your fifth here. But also in Jeff Clark, you know, he's got his social media account where he posts things. He goes to all these right-wing conventions. He speaks at all the MAGA rallies. He goes on Newsmax and OAN and all of these channels. But yet when he's brought into a proceeding where you have to testify under penalty of perjury, he doesn't say those things that he says to right-wing media. And it should be noted about Jeff Clark, and I think we all need to put this into perspective, that he would be probably one of the top two people that Donald Trump has on his short list to make the next attorney general if Trump were to ever get into power. Somebody who should not, in my opinion, even have a law license, and who's engaged in all of this horrific misconduct.
Yeah, and who may, in fact, not have one soon. And you're totally right. I mean, it's funny, these guys, even now, there's a sort of silo out there where they are champions, but, you know, they are looking at real jail time. And whatever we can say about Trump, like, I do think that the state trial, should he be convicted, there would be the Supreme Court would discern, I think probably properly, a principle that you can't put the current serving president in the clink. Not true of previous officials there. So he's looking, especially in Fulton County, at actual jail time. And I think that would be a bit of a damper on his attorney general prospects.
Harry, we got some more hot takes you and I got to do for this weekend. In the meantime, everybody, please check out Harry Litman's YouTube. Just search Talking Feds on YouTube. They're officially partnered with us at the MediasTouchNetwork. And so if you like the legal breakdowns we do here, you're going to love the level of granularity and detail and the guests that Harry has on his channel. Just search Talking Feds on YouTube. Subscribe now. Let's get that channel to 200,000 subscribers.
Hey, let me do a quick plug. We did something unusual this week, Ben. 13 of the biggest commentators who you see all the time on CNN and MSNBC. We normally have a roundtable of 3, like we're in a few minutes. We're going to do Jamie Raskin, Christine Todd Whitman, and Jacob Weisberg. But we had 13 commentators, and it was my job to try to herd the cats. I think it went okay, but a lot of people have said that's especially interesting, and you can find that on our YouTube channel as well.
Check it out, everybody. Harry, a pleasure as always.
As always.
Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million subs.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.